Hello, everybody. Welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, Paul Britton. I am here today with the Godfather, Sergio.
That
How are
never
you
gets old.
doing?
Doing good. How are you, Paul?
Oh, I'm doing well. Doing well. It's been not that long since the prior time where there was a rather large gap.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
But here we are.
yeah, and summer movies are coming up, so we'll hopefully see you not regularly, but
Yeah,
semi-regularly.
we have a list,
Yeah,
so
there is a list.
it's
It
always it's
is
always fun to talk movies with you.
it is
So
kept safe and sound in the vault.
yeah,
So yes, awesome. Today, obviously, look, there's one thing on everybody's minds. What did we think about Dune Part 2?
indeed.
It's all I get when I'm walking around is what did you and Sergio think of Dune Part 2? And it's like, you're gonna have to wait for the podcast.
Yeah,
So your waits are over, everyone. Congratulations for surviving
yeah.
the wait. Where did you see this? Where did you go?
Well, it's kind of a funny story because initially I had IMAX tickets
Oh,
and I was supposed to see it Friday night, and what happened was Fandango and Santikos, yeah, Santikos, had glitches in their system several weeks ago, unbeknownst to me, where they double sold seats.
oh no.
And so there was already someone my friends Nick and V, you know Nick, the three of us were in the theater headed toward our seats, and there were people there. So of course I talked to them and I said, hey, we've got the seats. And they're like, no, we do. And they did. They legit had the same seats that I had. And so I went and spoke to a supervisor to kind of see what could be done. And yeah, he said, he goes, we Fandango in our system somehow overlapped. And so anyway, so all that to say, I didn't see it in IMAX, which was a big disappointment for me. But we went and saw just standard showing at a theater here by my home.
Okay.
And
Same three folks.
Same three
Did
folks.
you get
Yeah,
the gang back
absolutely.
together? Okay,
Absolutely.
cool. Was it Friday night or did you have to put it off?
No, it ended up being Sunday at 2 p.m.
Okay.
So it is fresh on my mind.
Sweet. Yeah, I, on the other hand, purchased my IMAX tickets without any sort of difficulty, so
Good.
or glitch or of any kind. So I went and saw it. So there, close to me, we have the IMAX, which is just sort of like a semi nice big screen, and then but down in Fort Lauderdale at the Science Center, they have the IMAX, and I saw that was one that had the Oppenheimer at a 70 millimeter. The Dune 2 did not have a lot of 70 millimeter screenings.
Yeah.
So this was just sort of like their regular, screening, but it was like the screen. And we went Friday night, like 9:45. It was super late. My brother and my son and I went. I'm so glad I did that. Oh my God.
Yeah, I definitely want to see it in IMAX. Yeah.
It was just like glorious. So we were just talking before about we were trying to figure out when did the first one come out. Were we in the throes of our original iteration of the show? And we were. And I we both liked it a lot, right? Like that was
yeah, absolutely. I as a big fan of the books, felt like, and we'll get into this a bit, but it is by far the truest iteration in relation to the books, although part 2 had some items, but no, that's what I love most about it. You can tell very clearly that Denis Villeneuve, I believe, I don't know how to pronounce it. You can tell his passion and love for these books, and he's probably had this passion for them since he was a child, very evident in how he produced these films.
How many of the books have you read?
I have read the first 3, Dune, Messiah, and the title escapes me.
Dune?
Yeah, there you go. It lost me after that. So
okay,
in the same way that I believe that Marvel's best work ended with Endgame.
Yes,
I believe that Frank Herbert's conclusion of the story was Dune Messiah.
Right. So. And like hashtag spoiler alert, like the characters, there are like literally like 2 characters that carry on from the second book to the third book.
Yeah.
And everybody else is just completely different. And it fast forwards you like several hundred years. And then
Oh yeah.
like the third book to the fourth book, I believe it's another like 1,000 years or something like that.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And so that's why if you ever hear anything about from Villeneuve about what his plans are for the series, his plans are, I'm making one more movie and then I'm done.
Right.
It's over. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
There's and he's very strategic about how he does it in terms of who he casts in which roles. Because one of the things I've loved about his versions are his restraint with characters, in that he doesn't feel the need. When you think back to the 1984 Dune, which, campy as it is, it was not a good attempt, right?
Right.
And not just because of the camp, it's because you cannot fit this book into less than 2 hour film.
Right.
Then there's the Dune miniseries that lots of liberties were taken. So, there are things that that Denis Villeneuve does that just shows that he's going to do this the way he sees it. And even the changes he made to part 2 were to set up the potential part 3, which, he recently in an interview said that it hasn't been greenlit, but that is his plan. So, and it's going to get greenlit as far as
I mean, it made $80 million.
81 million.
Yeah. So we're good to go.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So I did a rewatch. I hadn't watched the David Lynch one in 30 years, probably 30 years.
I'm about
well over 30 years. Actually, it's been 35 years probably since I saw the and I gotta say, like, when I was a kid, I was totally fine with it.
Sure.
That movie stinks. Like,
it does.
That was not a good movie. Like, and I used to be like, oh, I know people don't like it, but whatever, it's fine. No, it's not good. Like, and part of that is the problems that the studio gave him, and part of it is his direction was just shit. Like, it's just the acting is so bad, but
it basically was a service to the actors more than it was to the story.
Right.
And it was supposed to be this big deal that he got Sting, and and it was just like, for those of us who are true fans, and I didn't see the 1984 version until much later. After I'd read the books. I didn't read the books till I was probably in my early 20s.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I found like in my early teens or even sooner. Too busy working, and but when I did look it up, I was like, oh no, this no.
Oops.
And even now on rewatch, I want to rewatch it simply because I'm enjoying sort of exploring the differences. I'm going to rewatch both the 84 film, and then I'm going to rewatch the miniseries also.
Okay.
Just to kind of see, but
cool.
Yeah, I really appreciate the take we have now. I feel it's done justice.
Here, I have a spicy question for you right off the bat. Is Dune Part 2 a sequel or a continuation of the first movie?
As far as I'm concerned, it's a continuation. Okay. It picks up right where we left off.
Literally where we left off.
Where we left off.
That's where we're going to go. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, and it had to be. Again, when we think of the director's purest view of the material and what he plans to do, it has to be a continuation. So yeah.
Right. And my understanding of if there is a third is that it will be more of a sequel feel than this, which was very much a continuation of the first movie.
I think that's what the setups that he left us with will lend itself to. Plus, if you're going to do Messiah, it's already a mammoth undertaking in terms of,
my understanding is it's 15 years after the events that happened in Dune.
Yeah.
Which I think it's supposed to be like a 2-year period or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and my point is, if he is truly going to make it a trilogy, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
You have to, you can't treat it as a continuation because of the time jump in the book.
Right.
And because of the circumstances that we're left with at the conclusion of this film, you're gonna have to have some quick resolves, because there's a definitive difference in the character of Chani in the book versus where we were left with her at the conclusion of this film. But I think I like what he did, because it's going to make Messiah more compelling.
Okay, cool.
And give her room to continue this role in the way that she's brilliantly doing it.
So as we have already said, Dune Part 2 picks up literally like next, square, next reel of film where the Dune left off. Dune left off with they're out in the desert, heading back to the Fremen home area, the Siege. Yes, the Fremen Siege. But interestingly enough, they don't pick up exactly right there. Where they do start off is in the sort of like the center of the universe, where the Grand Poobah, I don't remember what's his played by Christopher Walken, and his daughter is played by Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
And the Emperor. And so this is something where it's like, so we find out that Florence Pugh is a member of the Bene Gesserit, not Jesuit. Shoot, Gesserit. Thank you. Florence Pugh is a member of the Bene Gesserit, and the Emperor is very, very much in the controls and throes of the Bene Gesserit.
Oh, absolutely.
But they clearly are using each other as balances to increase both of their powers.
Right.
The Bene Gesserit are benefited by having Christopher Walken in as the Emperor, and the Emperor is clearly needs the Bene Gesserit to validate and control, keep his power in place.
Well, and that's what we have a guest. That's where I think I find it really interesting, because if the way it's portrayed in the film allows for those of us who know the books to believe that, opposite of what you're saying, the book, basically the Emperor is he's got his own power, but the Bene Gesserit are politically, they're the puppeteers
pulling the lever.
Okay, but they're pulling the levers on everybody. They're pulling levers on everybody.
Right.
And it's not just that they control the Emperor, because it's really not that. But to the people who are simply watching the films, it does a great job of not overplaying that. Mm-hmm. Because the reason Dune is so big is because it's so much politics, right?
Right.
And so in terms of the books, but the film, the way it's portrayed, the Bene Gesserit and the Emperor relationship, the setup at the beginning is again, you get a sense of who he is. And Walken, I mean, he's
such a presence.
He really is, and he doesn't say much.
No,
right? And yet, it's not the Walken that you're used to. That's it's such a reserved portrayal.
Yeah,
because I was skeptical when I saw that he had been cast.
Yeah,
and as soon as the scene was over, I was like, okay, we're good.
Yeah. He doesn't. You're right. He absolutely has scaled it back.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
And you understand immediately why Villeneuve cast Christopher Walken is because he just needed an elder statesman.
Absolutely.
He just needed an elder statesman.
Yeah.
Somebody that had the cachet to instantly be, he wanted somebody recognizable, because the reality is he spends zero time developing the
Exactly.
Literally zero time. So he's cashing in on the fact that it is Christopher Walken to say, this is an elder statesman, this is somebody important.
Yeah.
You're not going to remember his name when the movie's over.
Yeah, exactly.
And because we're not going to say it more than once.
Right.
And you know, and the fact that Florence Pugh as his daughter has so much more to do, and is so
and
much
what's
more.
really a small role. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it still has so much more to do.
Oh yeah,
Just as a member of the Bene Gesserit, that it's like, okay, so that's what we're dealing with here. And so another character that we're introduced to in the first act is on the home planet of the
the
not the
Harkonnens.
Cardassians, yeah, the Harkonnens. Fayed Rutha, played by Austin Butler. And before we dive into that, tell me, in or out, where are you on this?
As far as
Austin Butler.
I mean, I'm in on he is proving to be versatile and very like he's not a chameleon. He's a shapeshifter, man. He really,
yeah.
And again, one of the things that I love about this character is menacing but subtle, and when necessary, over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that is credit to Austin Butler's portrayal.
100%.
So I was excited when I saw that he was cast because of the look.
Yes.
But then once he appears on screen, it's just like, this is Fayed Rutha. This is
for a Harkonnen, who all the Harkonnens we've seen up until now are very brutal looking and very grotesque looking, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a pretty boy, and he's supposed to be a pretty boy. And he's playing somebody who, again, there's so much character development that is necessary to understand, just who this person is. And we get it in 2 minutes from Florence, not even 2 minutes, 2 lines from Florence Pugh, when the queen mother of the Bene Gesserit is like, all right, well, our backup plan is if this Paul Atreides, isn't going to be playing along, our backup plan is is Austin Butler. And Florence Pugh's like, oh my god, that fucking psycho.
He's a psychotic. He's psychotic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's it. And so then we're like, okay, cool. And it's so brilliant. It's such a brilliant use of dialogue, and such a brilliant use of cashing in on what we know from the queen mother, not the queen mother, but the sort of like the
Reverend Mother of
the Reverend Mother. Thank you. The Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserit, that it's, and the truth speaker to the so basically the Reverend Mother specifically for the Emperor. Yeah, and we get introduced also to a side character, but played amazingly by Leia Seydoux, who is basically the Bene Gesserit assigned to the Harkonnen homeworld.
Exactly.
And we really find out that the Bene Gesserit, literally, they're all women, and basically they're going around and storing the seed of the powerful families, i.e. getting knocked up by members of the powerful families, to just kind of put their people, their kin, their offspring in place.
It's
where they need it to be. And it's like
all political maneuvering.
That is crazy. So, back on
Arrakis.
Thank you. Back on Arrakis. Timothy Chalamet and Paul is playing Paul Atreides, and his mother, Rebecca Ferguson, is playing Jessica. They are trying to kind of come to grips with their current situation, while also trying to exact revenge as much as they possibly can.
Right.
And I love that's my favorite part of the movie. The time that we get to spend with those two taking completely different paths to ingratiate themselves with the Fremen. I just loved it. How did you feel about what was going on on
I hate to
Dune.
say, I hate to sound like a broken record, but because it is following the book so closely, it's beautiful to me because everybody, if people aren't a fan or have or readers of the books, then they think this story is going to be about this hero, Paul Atreides. He is not a hero.
Okay.
No spoilers if you don't want to go there, but
Yeah.
this is, and you go back to Frank Herbert's book. This is in literature one of the classic examples of the anti-hero.
Yeah.
And so the struggle that you're getting with Rebecca Ferguson, some of the best dialogue in this movie happened between Jessica and Paul Atreides,
right,
and of course acted beautifully. And it's that push and pull of him, the reluctant Messiah kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then you see how, okay, I can't get into my son's head, so instead I'm going to there's even an entire scene where she says, I'm going to find the weak ones and I'm going to make them, believe.
Right.
And so that maneuvering, I mean, she's a Bene Gesserit at heart, obviously.
Correct.
And just, I believe that the interchanges that we have with them are or actually I should reverse it. The scenes we get where they're out doing their own thing are as powerful as when they come together
for sure
and have these discussions that really just come down to him resisting her and her pushing even harder. And, it's so well presented without it, I don't know. This is going to sound corny, but I forget. This is one of those rare moments in film where I forgot the actors, and I was totally sucked in by the characters,
especially
Rebecca.
Yeah, especially Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, absolutely,
she gets so lost in the character of Jessica, and it's so beautiful.
And I've Mission Impossible. I think of other places where I've seen her. This is a whole different thing for Rebecca Ferguson. I mean, this is where I think we really finally got to see her acting chops.
Right.
And I don't know if that's unfair to say, but at least in the material I've seen her in.
Right.
She carried the weight of this film on at least half of it.
She carried the spiritual weight, like literally.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Literally, she carries the spiritual weight of the
film. I can't picture anyone else.
Yeah.
In this role.
Yeah. And and just from a filmmaking standpoint, the way that Villeneuve shows sort of the struggles that that the Fremen are having against the Harkonnen, while also showing the struggles that Paul has in becoming a fully accepted by the Fremen, and Chani, played by just a remarkable Zendaya, is having with coming to terms with the fact that there actually might be signs that Paul is the promised one, and the leaps and leagues and depths and everything that Jessica is willing to go to put Paul in a place to not necessarily be the Messiah, but use that as a way to be where she believes he needs to go.
Right. But there's also that personal side on her end where her motives are to basically break away from the Bene Gesserit, and rise above because there's my understanding of the culture of the Bene Gesserit is there's a Reverend Mother assigned to a particular culture or family or whatever, right?
Right. Every planet seems to have one.
Yeah. And it's awesome how the whole portrayal of Jessica was more than just, I want my son to be here. She wants to have the power that her son being the Messiah, or the Lisan al-Gaib, as they call it in the movie or in the books. She's got her own game plan here of what it's going to do for her and the position it places her in.
Right.
So
and her plans.
Exactly. So she's puppeteering everything happening on Arrakis, basically.
Right.
Which I think is so perfectly portrayed in the control she struggles to have over Paul Atreides, but also the way in which she manipulates the entirety, or not the entirety, but a good half of the Fremen culture.
Yeah. So I mentioned being the spiritual center. Javier Bardem as the obvious comic relief here.
Yeah, and true believer.
and surprising comic relief, because I don't think that that's a role that we have ever thought for 1 second we would see Javier Bardem playing. I'm watching like side story. I'm watching on HBO on TV, just randomly Collateral comes on. I'm like, holy shit, Javier Bardem is sort of like the bad guy here.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And it's like, that's so cool. And now we see him doing this, and it's like, I am just so here for every single meme that people want to send over of Javier Bardem saying "as it was written." Like, I'm just here for it.
Yeah, no, fantastic role and exploration of an amazing character, and just everything I wanted from him that they couldn't put into Dune Part 1.
Right, right. He was so compelling in Dune Part 1, and just because he would literally just waltz in, steal a scene, waltz out. Like literally, that's what he would do. And people, the characters, would be reacting to him, not not reacting to the character. They would literally be reacting to Javier Bardem walking in and stealing the scene. Like, just be like that. That was their reaction.
It reminds me of how many of his movies there are scenes where he has long walks, like toward the camera.
Right.
It's like a Bardem thing. I think that you got to do that because you got to let him command the room.
Yeah.
And he does so much with this character over the 2 films.
I love the turn that his character basically he becomes the sort of the avatar for those who believe that Paul Atreides is in fact the promised one.
Yep.
And and I don't know if it's the character or if it's Bardem's, portrayal of the character. If it was, I would love to have been in on the conversation between Villeneuve and Bardem that they had about, how serious am I supposed to take this? Because I feel like Bardem was like, I see some humor in here, and I think Villeneuve said, yeah, let's do that. Like, that, play that up, and it works. Oh,
and
my
it's
God,
needed.
It works.
It's so needed.
Yeah,
I mean, there is so much tension in this film. That when you get and it's awesome that Bardem can play the humor without losing the gravitas of the true believer that he is. That his Stilgard is.
Because of the seeds that he planted in the first episode.
Absolutely. And you took it. He was way more serious in the first film because the role called for it.
Right.
And we got to know the character in this one. And so, yeah, you're right. It started way back in Part 1.
Right. Oh, man. And then we get to the third act.
Yep.
Whew.
Can we let me see what you're calling third act. Where are you saying the third act begins?
The third act begins basically when Paul and his mother reunite in the southern hemisphere, and his mother has become the Reverend Mother for the Fremen, and has been waiting for Paul to come to, like, the third act starts when, Paul does another thing and another impossible thing that suggests that he is in fact
Can we first, for just a moment, we visit the Harkonnen homeworld, smack dab in the middle of the film.
Right. I mentioned it. I mentioned the Austin Butler coming in.
Right. No, absolutely. But I just want to say this from a cinematography standpoint, and from just the use of color in this film,
or lack thereof,
is something we have to comment on. Just I need to know from you in that sequence. It literally smack dab in the middle of the movie. We go to the Harkonnen homeworld, and there's that whole gladiator scene and such.
It's basically black and white. It's clearly not filmed in black and white.
No, it's not.
The amazing thing.
the palette of those of that sequence is just amazing.
Yeah.
I just wanted your thoughts, like how
it's.
I loved how jarring it was.
Yeah, and it's unnecessary but beautiful, because here's the thing is that the Harkonnens are so different from, all the other people that we see.
Sure.
That all you need to do is just show a whole bunch of Harkonnens being, badass, and be like, okay, well, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
But they're just like, hey, look, they are this way. They are black and white because their society is black and white.
Yeah.
And their home world is black and white. They have a black hole sun.
The portrayal of the black sun is so awesome. I was like, yeah.
I was just waiting for like grunge bands to walk out and start singing songs and B-girls to dance and stuff.
That's all it was missing. Yeah.
So it was
kind of George Miller-esque in some ways. But
very much. Oh, yeah. Very much so. Very much shades of 300. Very much. And it's just, and that society just, it's ugly. It is so ugly. And for Austin Butler to be playing the pretty boy of the ugly society and just to absolutely go so far over the top. I loved it. I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me take you on that small rabbit trail. I needed to know what you thought.
Yeah. No. I touched on it because we're not there long. Like
we're not, but
it's a 2-hour, 45-minute movie. We're there for maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's literally a tone setting thing. Like
because they've got to build on the whole Fade Rotha character. So,
right. So we're back on Arrakis, and we're riding sandworms, and we're attacking Harkonnen encampments and bases and machinery. And Paul Atreides is leading the Fremen on an attack, the area where the Emperor is coming. Paul Walker. Oh my goodness, Christopher Walken is arriving on Arrakis, and we get the Paul versus we get Timothée Chalamet versus Austin Butler. Just two huge personalities right now. Absolutely, like they didn't have to pull out a knife. They could have just looked at each other, and like I would have been like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Like, but they do have a fight, and I thought it was a really good fight. I don't know.
Yeah, that entire sequence for me was one I was looking forward to, because again, it's never intended to be this long thing.
Right.
But and it's funny because if you watch the scene and you pay attention to the way in which the director shows you the people watching, that short sequence tells so much of the story, especially the third act can pretty much be summed up in terms of the characters and reactions and things that are happening.
Right.
Are all happen within that fight scene on the peripherals.
Yeah.
And no detail was missed. I don't know. This was so that scene was amazingly put together.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been like to choreograph that fight, but
I know, right?
Yeah. I love what was done on the peripherals of the fight.
So I'm not gonna spoil here, but I will say up until this point, Paul Atreides is not an anti-hero. Paul Atreides is 100% a hero.
Sure.
And then he takes on the mantle of the anti-hero, the mantle of, he's not really who I thought he was.
And he does it with one line to the wonderful Zendaya.
Yeah, and I was really surprised about that. Like, I just wasn't expecting that at all.
Oh, yeah?
At all. No.
Did I ask you if you'd read the books?
You had not. I had not.
Okay, gotcha. See, that didn't surprise me. So
okay, yeah. Obviously,
but it was so heartbreaking.
Yeah, and so look, go to the movies. If there has ever been a movie that needs to be seen on as big of a screen as you can possibly humanly find, this is
the one.
If you have been sitting at home and like since March 2020 and like, oh, I just don't know if I can go back to the theaters yet. I gotta wait for this is it. If Dune 2 doesn't lure you back into the theaters, if you hadn't already been lured by Barbenheimer, and if this can't do it, just never plan on going to another movie again, because you will absolutely miss out on an experience with this one. So I do want to hit on something. So we covered the plot, the filmmaking here. It's just astounding, and really it's we touched on the 1984 version, and 2023 was such an amazing year in film, and Sergio, I'm sorry you've missed out. Like you picked the wrong year to step away, because there have been so many amazing films that have come through. And if Dune if Dune 2 had kept its place in November, holy shit, what kind of fucking bonkers insane year 2023 would have been. Instead, we get this Dune that just kind of like takes over 2024 and plants his flags and raises the bar and says that's what you got to beat.
Right.
It's so beautiful. Dear God, for as much as people have been praising, and me and you have been praising the artistry that went into Oppenheimer.
Right.
And really, that's the movie from 2023 that I'm going to compare it to, not only because it's the awards favorite, but because it's also that kind of production. Okay. Right. It matches it on every single fucking level. There isn't a single thing that Oppenheimer does where Dune's like, oh, okay, well, watch this. Oh, you have a great score? That's nice. Here, listen to my score. Oh, you have some interesting cinematography. Well, that's nice. We also went to different sites and on site and used practical effects and stuff. But also, here's the best computer generated effects that you're going to see this year or any other year for the next 2 or 3. Oh, really? Production design. Okay, yeah, we got that. Here you go. Like everything is so professional in this movie. It's just remarkable.
And I think it's while you were talking, I was looking up Villeneuve's filmography.
Yeah.
Because I firmly believe that he's one of those directors that takes from what he's done and does it better the next time out. And, I think of, if you go just to 2015 for Sicario,
yes,
he follows it up with Arrival. I love Sicario. Arrival puts that movie, definitely exceeds that movie. Then Blade Runner 2049, say what you want about it. He took you into the world.
Yeah.
And then the 2 Dune films. And that's the last 10 years for this guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if people are going to say at some point that this trilogy is his magnum opus or whatever the case might be, but this is a guy who understands scale. Yep. This is a guy who understands story. And this is a guy who is doing art. Absolutely. When you consider that part 2 doesn't have, at least in my opinion, near the majesty of some of the part 1 images, like when you think about the scene where they come and tell tell Paul or Leto Atreides he's going to take over. Right. This is not that film.
Right.
And yet, just when you think that, okay, well, we're not going to get anything like that, the Emperor arrives and that whole city that just sort of plants itself, you're like, okay, here we go. Okay, we got a bit of a taste of that.
Yep, yeah.
It's just a beautifully crafted film, all in all.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Well, here on Real to Real Talk, we do tacos instead of stars. And if we feel like something deserves a little bit of extra, instead of giving half a taco, we add guac. Why? Because nobody eats a half a fucking taco. So, Sergio, Dune Part 2, where are you landing?
I am going to land, and only because I haven't seen it in IMAX. I want to see it in IMAX because then I'll tell you it's 5 tacos. This is 4 tacos plus guac. The
What?
the only reason I don't go 5 tacos is because the purist in me, there were some things done in the end that
Okay.
I'm like, I understand it's to, but listen, if I only rate it quality of filmmaking, direction, editing, sound, everything, it's a 5.
Okay.
I honestly think the 5 will be Messiah. I firmly believe that.
Okay.
And but like I probably
Some
catch
people
me
don't like
after
Messiah. You know that, right?
the book.
Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely, I understand that. I completely
Okay.
understand that because it goes, Matrix. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But I know where I feel like I know where the Matrix got. At least the third film got some of its inspiration.
Okay.
But no, I struggled between 4 plus guac and 5.
Yeah.
And I think that there were some things that for me were rushed in the end.
Okay.
That it really felt like they landed the plane and like I don't know, it just felt very sudden in terms of how they did the resolution. And so I'm going to say 4 plus guac. Probably regret it tonight when I go to bed, but
That's fine.
this is as close to 5 as I've seen, and it's an amazing film. I loved it.
I'm going 5 plus guac because
Nice.
it was everything I wanted.
Nice. I love it.
More, and it was just beautiful. And I can't wait to hopefully see it again. I tried. My son mentioned how he started nodding off towards the end because it was super late. Like
Sure.
Like I said,
Yeah.
we went to 9:45 showing. And I was like, oh well, if you want to go again on Sunday, I'd go again. And he was like, no, I'm good. I was like, come on, let's do it.
I can Wikipedia it.
Yeah.
No, I definitely one of the things I'm hoping to do this weekend is to go see it in IMAX because I need to. So,
well, the crowds are going to be
film.
sucked away by Kung Fu Panda 4, so it should not be a problem for you.
I'll let you know.
All right,
that's funny.
All right, Sergio, as always, it's super big pleasure. Hang out, everybody. I'm going to do a 2-second review of another movie, but we will let Sergio bail.
Awesome. Paul, thank you as always, man. Have a good night. We'll talk soon.
We'll see you in a few weeks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Boop. All right. This is me doing a review of Adam Sandler's latest movie, Spaceman, now showing on Netflix. Look, it's Adam Sandler doing a serious role. So it's going to be mildly quirky and not remotely as deep as you kind of hope it would be. So the conceit of this movie is there's some kind of alternate, late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, early 2000s. I don't know. They never establish a year, but it's post the fall of communism. Well, okay, so the fall of communism was 89-ish, and Adam Sandler would have been like 15. So fast forward 20 years. So yeah, all right. So we're talking mid 2000s, or and this is an alternate universe where the Czech Republic has their own like space program, like independent of Russia, and they're sending Adam Sandler to Jupiter, and they have figured out not only how to get Adam Sandler to Jupiter in 6 months, but they have also figured out how to have communications not lag, i.e. they have at the speed of light communications. And what ends up happening is his wife, played by Carey Mulligan, is pregnant and has decided that she wants to leave him while he's at Jupiter. And this stress on Sandler, and by the way, the space agency is like, yeah, we're not going to let him know what's going on. We're just going to pretend like the link is down. So the stress of Sandler not being able to speak to his super very pregnant wife is causing him problems until he meets a giant space spider played by Paul Dano, because of course the giant space spider is played by Paul Dano. And This is so. This is one of those fun, interesting movies where madness takes on a manifestation. Okay, so it's not just madness; it's madness with a manifestation, which leads us to wonder: is this actually madness, or is this just him going through some shit and meeting a giant space spider? Uh, I mean, the answer is semi obvious, but not entirely obvious because it's entirely plausible that in this alternate reality where the Czech Republic has their own space program that can send people to Jupiter, uh, in the mid 2000s, that there's a giant space spider, and it's interesting. Like it's an interesting movie, and that's where I fall on it. I mean, I wish that if you like Adam Sandler, 100% watch the movie. He's really interested. He's fascinating in it. Carey Mulligan also is really good in it. Yeah, but ultimately it's just a treatise on madness, and that's okay. I liked it. I didn't love it. It's the classic two tacos plus guac for me, meaning yes, I would tell people go ahead and watch it. It's not, I've seen it. It's not something I need to see again. And so that's where I land. Hey everybody, thank you so much for coming on out. I hope you enjoyed Sergio. I know I did. Thank you again, Sergio, for coming on the show. Always love to hear your take on things. And we'll see you next week, where I may or may not be talking about Kung Fu Panda 4. Oh, and the Oscars. That's right. The Oscars are going on. So I'll definitely have quite a bit to say about that. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.